So I have the great pleasure of welcoming on the legendary David Goldring, who's CEO at Just Business Advice. We'll talk more about what your business does, David, in just a second. But the first thing that I want to say is just a thank you from the bottom of my heart for selecting RocketPhone for your business. And I thought I'd just start the conversation with just asking you that question, David. You know, why did you choose RocketPhone?
Well, we started off with Natterbox. We are with Salesforce. We have a number of packages with Salesforce, one of which was partner communities. But it became very apparent that the link between Natterbox, Salesforce, and partner communities in particular could not work. And as a result, I was introduced to yourself, Mudge, who did the impossible. You found a solution that I was told was not there. And that's the reason. It's the fact that you went out of your way, you found a solution that was straightforward, simple, effective, but most importantly, one that worked, defying the odds, as I would call it. And for me, as a result, it was a no-brainer.
That's good to hear. It's very good to hear. I mean, it was. I mean, from our perspective, and we really enjoyed it because, you know, it's always good when we come across customers that force us to, you know, think about new problems and new challenges. And there's this sort of like, if you look at all the telephony vendors across that sort of Salesforce ecosystem, they're all designed to work inside Sales Cloud or Service Cloud, which is like the main Salesforce application. And then, you know, when companies like yourselves go off and extend that functionality out to your partners and, you know, the people that you work with outside of your core business through things like communities and partner portals and that kind of thing, it seems to be an area that's completely ignored by all these other telephony companies. And it was a great opportunity for us to have an actual customer that we could sort of like deliver this functionality with. And what it's meant for us actually is that we are now the only Salesforce telephony vendor that can work with any Salesforce license. And that is actually thanks to you guys, David. So thank you so much for giving us that opportunity.
Well, it worked both ways. I think from my point of view as well, RocketPhone has a product. As a product, there's nothing else like it on the marketplace. That's what I saw with the alternate companies like Natterbox. Theirs is a phone system, whereas what I found is yours is an AI system in real time, which does what it says it can do. It works. And for that, you couldn't ask any more for your money.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So enough about RocketPhone, and I'm really glad. I'm so glad that you chose us. It really helps us to sort of validate our assumptions, and like, you know, we take risks every day with sort of what feature, what function should we implement this AI, how should we implement it, and then when a customer says to us it's just perfect, it's complete. Not just music to my ears, but the whole company loves to hear that kind of feedback. So tell us about your business, David. Tell us about Just Business Advice.
Well, I set up Just Business Advice after having spent 12 years working for medium and large businesses, providing them with business advice, where they truly didn't appreciate the benefit of the advice that was given. And I've always looked at the small business owner as one which has need, but historically they can't afford the service. Therefore, they're isolated from business advice, and they're the ones that need it most. So I set up Just Business Advice to give the SME business owners access to affordable business advice. And what we charge in a year in principle, is what another business advisor would charge in a month. So we have a low cost monthly payment scheme which provides business advice with complementary health and safety and employment law advice to the business owners who need it.
That's I can speak for for our company, and this is not my first business. This is my third one, and honestly, I think one of the highest sort of cost centers for us is paying for that accounting professional services, HR professional services, legal professional services.
Exactly.
And when you add it all up, it ends up being like a huge amount of cash, and it has a huge impact on our run rate and sort of capital reserves and that kind of thing. It's brilliant that organisations like yours exist, where you've basically remodeled that whole business process, haven't you? So that I guess your business depends on having lots of customers using your service, and then you can sort of drive that cost down, so everyone gets to benefit. It's like democratizing access to high quality advice.
I suppose the modern term for it is disrupting the existing marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was a business advisor, a sole business advisor, and I was earning fantastic money, doing a very good job for the clients that I dealt with. But then I always kept looking at the small business owner and saying, there's got to be a way to provide the advice that they need. And there's got to be a way as well to give them a return on their investment, to make it worth their while, and at the same time to help them with the problems that they experience. And we've all been there. We know what stress is like, and we know what the effects of that can be. And the small business owner really does suffer.
Yeah. I think one of the other great things about your business, actually, which I really like, is that when you have if you've got one accounting firm, one legal firm, one HR firm, whatever that firm might be, as a small business, you're not going to large companies, so you're going to go to like a boutique provider, and they're going to have one expert, one HR expert, one financial expert, one whatever the heck else expert. Whereas the way you've set your business up, you have access to like very large numbers of experts. So Absolutely. If you have a unique or an unusual requirement, there's going to be, you don't have to be stuck with the same expert. You can go off and find somebody who can help you like quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And more importantly, if we're told the need of the individual, we can find the expert for them. We'll take the headache away from the business owner. We have so many of our advisors now scattered throughout the country. So it gives us a real opportunity to find a specialist within the organisation that we have who has experience of a particular market sector. So I'll give you an example. Mine is retail. I spent 37 years in retail. And also recruitment. They're the two specialisms that I focus on. And the advisors that we have their individual specialisms as well. And we record them. So if somebody comes to us and says, well, I've got this particular problem, do you have a specialist who can help me? The answer will invariably be yes.
Yeah, perfect. So there's a lot of turbulence in the economy. There's lots of bad news. It's not just in the UK, it's all over the world. There's redundancies, bank runs, inflation, wars. None of this stuff is good for anybody, whether you're an individual or in business or whatever. And what are you seeing? What's your sort of advice in this sort of climate that we find ourselves in?
Well, I think the effect of the current marketplace, which has affected almost every individual and every business, is that the costs to the individual and to the business have grown so far, so much in such a short period of time that it's putting terrible pressure on a business's ability to ride this storm out. Um, and unfortunately for business owners, it's not been one thing, it's been one thing after another.
Yeah.
It started with Brexit.
Yeah.
It then continued with the lockdowns. Sorry, my apologies. COVID is where it first started. Brexit was another factor. And then you have the, unfortunately, the war in Ukraine, which has caused interest rates in the UK and across the world to rise. And then you've got supply issues because of the war in Ukraine, which have caused the cost issues. So you've got terrible pressures within the marketplace for business and for individuals. So it's like being hit from many sides. You know, which side am I going to be punched next?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a terrible effect for any individual to deal with.
Absolutely is. I mean, I guess there's no magic bullet, and it depends on each individual business. I mean, everyone's. I mean, particularly, I was speaking to. I went out for a kebab the other day, and I was speaking to the chap who owns it, and it struck me that the price of these things had gone up like 4 times.
Yeah.
And I said, how are people still buying these things? He said, we have no choice. Like if you look behind me, we've got these gas burners, and they're on all night,
Yes.
and that's costing us like 4 or 5 times what it used to cost. So,
Yeah.
so our price increases don't actually match the costs that we're having to suffer. You just wonder like how they're going to get through this sort of thing. And it's there is no magic bullet and there's no magic solution, I suppose. And it's just a case of I guess riding it out, isn't it? And
It's being creative as well. The way I look at it, I'll give you an example. If your house is made of wood, if there is a storm, unless the foundations of that wood are so resilient, your house will be knocked down. Same applies to brick housing. So I think the first thing I always look at with any business is what are the foundations of that business like? Has it got the scope to ride out the storm that is coming or the storm that we are in? And then, are there ways in which we can increase the turnover of that business? Being very creative. And there are ways. I did it, when I first did it, was when I ran Sony centers. And we experienced recessions. Now, we sold very high value product. And it's a marketplace that truly only worked when the market was sound, i.e. people had money in their pockets to spend. When they don't have the money in their pockets to spend, you can try and sell your product, but you may not be able to increase your product sales. So you have to find resilience. And I think the key word in today's marketplace is helping business owners become resilient to be able to weather that storm.
Absolutely. So for the folks that are watching who may be heading up businesses, SMEs, maybe the startup founders or whatever, what are the recurring themes that your customers come to you with? What are like the top 2 or 3 problems or things that you find yourself helping these companies with?
I think stress is without any question experienced by the business owner. I think it gets on top, the problems get on top of them, and it's understandable. So I find that the business owner feels they're overwhelmed, they're challenged, they're in crisis, they've got, in today's marketplace, profit problems, profits going the wrong way, costs are rising, turnover's not rising exponentially, and as a result, net profit's going down. That has another effect. If your money in the business that you're hoping to retain goes down, unfortunately, so does your cash flow.
Yeah.
Because the bills are increasing, cash becomes king. And what they're experiencing are all these different factors within their business. I can't increase my turnover is going down, my cash is now non-existent. In today's market, can I get a loan, a bank loan, to help me with my cash flow? Yes, you can, to a degree, at exorbitant interest rates, depending on where you go, and they are stressed. And so what we do, we look at the resilience of the business, and it doesn't take long to do. Now, bearing in mind, we have two functions. We are an advice line, and we have advisors who work on site. But the benefit to the individual is we don't just give advice, we mentor them, we help them, and we review their management reports, because that tells us, it tells me a lot of information about the business. Yeah, they could have hidden issues in their business which they are aware of that anybody else looking may not be. Is their director's loan account in order? Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, because of the circumstance, are they drawing too much money out of their business? Is their cash flow as a result affected? Is there sufficient net profit to allow for the increase in drawdown on directors' dividend? And we're not even touching at this stage the turnover issues or the profitability issues. So what we do, we look at the business, even though we're an advice line, we dig deep. And what we do is we set a course of action, we monitor the improvement each month, and sometimes it will go back downwards and sometimes it will go forwards. But we help the business owner create the plan, and we keep touching base with the business owner at the end of each month. Once they've closed that month's accounts, we then see the adjusted picture. And so the key really is we are an advice line. We give advice, but we don't let them go. We help them, we hold their hand. Sometimes I become their mother, and I say to them, you can't do this.
You have a great hairstyle for that, David.
But the most important thing is I treat them as human beings.
Yeah.
With feelings. I'm non-judgmental. I want to help them, as do all our advisors, because that's my ethos for this business.
Yeah.
You look after people. Yes, we get a monthly payment from them, but at the end of the day, you could take people's money and just run away. I want to help people.
Yeah.
And if I can help those people survive, and that's my history, so much the better.
Excellent. It was great talking to you, David. Really appreciate you spending time coming onto this podcast. So what's your website address? www.justbusinessadvice.com.
It is. It's a full transactional website, but it will give tools, it'll give access, and it will give a ton of information but most importantly, it's a route to get me. And what I do with everybody who joins, like yourself, I hold a webinar. I want to introduce me to every single person that comes on board, and then I give them a route to me in case they're not being serviced properly, because I want them to be. And I also want to hear what their problems are. And now I could be inundated with 4,000 phone calls, which maybe is not the best idea. But when somebody has a problem that nobody else can fix, I want to hear about it.
Yeah. Excellent.
And from that point of view, we are very much alike, Budge.
Yes. we look for the big challenges. I think we look for big challenges, but we do it on purpose. But it also sounds quite cheeky. We also look for the challenges that are easiest to fix. They're the quick wins, aren't they? You start knocking those down, and then you can get onto the bigger ones afterwards. But by then, you put a lot of value back into the company very quickly. So,
yes, yeah. Exactly.
Excellent. David, thank you again so much. Really enjoyed our conversation. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you again for selecting RocketPhone. And we're looking forward to doing wonderful things together going forward. I'm really looking forward to our work together.
Thank you very much, Rich.
Thanks, David.